There comes a moment, usually unannounced, when you notice that your body doesn't respond quite as it once did. Perhaps it's the knees after a long drive, the hands on a cold morning, or simply the realization that recovery takes a little longer than it used to. These observations are often dismissed as inevitable, as simply what happens when years accumulate. But what if this framing misses something essential? What if the way we typically think about aging as a gradual decline we must simply accept overlooks a deeper understanding of how the body actually works? The truth is that the body is constantly communicating its needs, sending signals about what supports its function and what undermines it. Learning to hear these signals and understanding the patterns that appear consistently in those who maintain their vitality across the decades reveals something unexpected about the years ahead. This is not about stopping time or reversing what is natural. It is about something far more achievable and perhaps more valuable. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. Living well across the years. A calm examination of healthy aging. Part 1. Understanding the landscape of aging. There comes a moment, often quietly and without announcement, when a person notices that their body does not respond quite as it once did. Perhaps it is the knees that feel stiff after a long car ride, or the hands that are slower to warm up on a cold morning. Perhaps it is the realization that recovery from a minor illness takes a few days longer than it used to, or that energy levels fluctuate in ways that seem to have no clear explanation. These observations are not signs of failure. They are simply evidence of being alive for a certain number of years, of having a body that has faithfully carried its owner through decades of experience. The process of growing older is often discussed in terms of loss, as if aging were simply a matter of things being taken away. But this framing misses something essential. Aging is also a process of accumulation, of gathering knowledge, perspective, and a deeper understanding of what truly matters. The goal of healthy aging is not to pretend that time stands still, but to ensure that the body continues to support the life one wishes to live. That mobility, clarity, and comfort are preserved as fully as possible for as long as possible. This exploration is not about quick fixes or miraculous interventions. It is about understanding the patterns that tend to appear in people who maintain their health well into later years, and about considering how those patterns might be adapted to individual circumstances. The ideas presented here come from observations of populations around the world, from research into the biology of aging, and from the accumulated wisdom of those who have studied what allows some people to thrive while others struggle. There are no guarantees in this territory, only probabilities and possibilities. But understanding those probabilities can help inform choices that make a longer, healthier life more likely. Part 2. The biology of aging made understandable. To understand what supports healthy aging, it helps to have a basic picture of what happens in the body over time. This is not about complex molecular pathways or obscure genetic mechanisms. It is about a few simple concepts that explain why bodies change and what can be done to influence those changes. Consider first the idea of wear and tear. Every cell in the body is subjected to constant stress from normal functioning. Energy production creates byproducts that can damage cellular components. Environmental exposures introduce additional challenges. The body has remarkable repair systems that address this damage. But these systems are not perfect, and over time, unrepaired damage accumulates. This accumulation is one aspect of what aging is. Next, consider the idea of information loss. Cells contain DNA, which serves as an instruction manual for building and maintaining the body. Over time, this instruction manual can develop errors, like a book that has been copied too many times and has started to lose words or sentences. Additionally, the systems that read the instruction manual and carry out its directions can become less precise. The result is that cells may not function as efficiently as they once did. Then there is the question of energy distribution. The body has limited resources for maintenance and repair. In younger years, when reproduction and growth are priorities, the body allocates significant energy to these functions. As the years pass, the body must decide how to allocate its resources among various maintenance tasks. Some systems may receive more attention than others, and this prioritization affects which aspects of health decline first. Finally, there is the matter of communication. Cells constantly talk to one another, sending signals that coordinate activities throughout the body. With age, these communication systems can become noisier, with signals that are too weak, too strong, or misinterpreted. This contributes to the chronic, low-grade inflammation that often accompanies aging and is associated with many age-related conditions. Understanding these basic processes helps explain why certain strategies appear to support healthy aging. Strategies that reduce unnecessary damage, support repair systems, optimize energy use, and improve cellular communication tend to be associated with better health outcomes over time. The following sections explore specific approaches that address these fundamental processes. Part 3. Movement as a foundation for long-term health. There is perhaps no single factor more consistently associated with healthy aging than regular physical movement. This is not about athletic performance or achieving specific fitness goals. It is about the simple, profound fact that human bodies are designed to move, and they function better when they do. Why movement matters at every level. When muscles contract during movement, they release signaling molecules that travel through the bloodstream and influence virtually every system in the body. These molecules, sometimes called myokines, communicate with the brain, the liver, the immune system, and the bones. They tell these tissues that the body is active and that resources should be directed toward maintaining function. A sedentary body sends a very different signal. It tells the body that high levels of maintenance are unnecessary, that muscles can be allowed to shrink, that bones need not be as dense, that metabolic systems can downregulate. Movement also directly addresses the wear and tear issue mentioned earlier. Regular physical activity stimulates the body's repair systems. When muscles are gently stressed through activity, they respond by becoming stronger. When bones bear weight, they respond by maintaining density. When joints are moved through their full range, they produce synovial fluid that nourishes cartilage. The body interprets movement as a signal that these tissues are needed and should be maintained. Furthermore, movement improves circulation, which means that oxygen and nutrients are delivered more efficiently to all tissues, and waste products are removed more effectively. This supports cellular function and reduces the accumulation of damaging byproducts. Types of movement that support healthy aging. Different types of movement address different aspects of aging, and a balanced approach includes several categories. Aerobic movement, sometimes called cardiovascular exercise, involves sustained activity that increases heart rate and breathing. This type of movement strengthens the heart, improves lung function, and supports the health of blood vessels. It is associated with better cognitive function, likely because it improves blood flow to the brain and stimulates the release of factors that support the growth of new brain cells. Walking, swimming, cycling, and dancing are all excellent forms of aerobic movement that can be adapted to different fitness levels and joint considerations. Strength-building movement becomes increasingly important with age because muscle mass naturally declines over the years. This decline, if unchecked, affects metabolism, balance, and the ability to perform everyday activities. Strength training does not require heavy weights or gym memberships. Bodyweight exercises such as squats, lunges, and push-ups against a wall can be highly effective. Resistance bands offer another accessible option. The goal is simply to provide muscles with regular challenges that encourage them to maintain their mass and function. Balance and flexibility movement addresses the risk of falls, which becomes more significant with age. Activities that challenge balance, such as standing on one foot while brushing teeth or practicing Tai Chi, help maintain the complex systems that keep us upright. Stretching maintains range of motion in joints and prevents the stiffness that can limit daily activities. Yoga, practiced appropriately for individual capabilities, addresses both balance and flexibility while also providing stress reduction benefits. Practical integration of movement. The challenge for many people is not understanding that movement matters, but finding ways to incorporate it consistently into daily life. The key insight here is that movement does not have to be structured exercise to count. Walking to the store instead of driving, taking stairs instead of elevators, gardening, housework, and playing with grandchildren all contribute to total daily movement. For those who prefer structured approaches, the evidence suggests that consistency matters more than intensity. 30 minutes of moderate movement most days of the week is associated with significant health benefits. This can be broken into smaller segments, such as 3 10-minute walks, which may be easier to fit into busy schedules. The most important consideration is finding forms of movement that are enjoyable enough to sustain. Movement that feels like punishment will not be maintained. Movement that feels like a natural part of daily life, that provides pleasure or social connection or time in nature, becomes self-reinforcing. Part 4. Patterns of eating that support long life. Food is not medicine. Despite the popular phrase, food is food, and its primary purposes are to provide energy and raw materials for the body's maintenance and repair. But the specific foods chosen, and the patterns in which they are eaten, do influence how well these processes function. The question of inflammation. Much of the discussion around food and aging centers on inflammation, and for good reason. The low-grade, chronic inflammation that often accompanies aging is associated with many conditions that reduce quality of life. Certain foods appear to contribute to this inflammatory state, while others appear to calm it. The distinction is not about individual good and bad foods, but about overall patterns. Diets characterized by high intakes of processed foods, refined grains, added sugars, and certain types of oils tend to be associated with higher levels of inflammatory markers in the blood. Diets rich in vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and healthy fats tend to be associated with lower levels. This is not a matter of strict rules or elimination. It is about proportions and frequency. A diet that regularly includes a wide variety of plant foods, that emphasizes whole foods over processed ones, and that includes healthy fats from sources like olive oil, nuts, and fish, provides the body with compounds that support its natural anti-inflammatory systems. The role of plant foods. Vegetables and fruits contain thousands of compounds beyond the vitamins and minerals listed on nutrition labels. These compounds, often called phytochemicals, serve various functions in the plants that produce them, and many of them have effects in human bodies as well. Some act as antioxidants, neutralizing the damaging byproducts of normal metabolism. Others influence gene expression, turning on protective pathways. Still others support the beneficial bacteria that live in the digestive tract. The variety of these compounds matters. Different colors in plants generally indicate different families of phytochemicals with different effects. A diet that includes leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cabbage, deeply colored berries, orange and red vegetables, and alliums like onions and garlic provides a broad spectrum of these supportive compounds. Fats and their effects. Dietary fats have been the subject of much confusion over the years, but a clearer picture has emerged. The types of fats consumed influence the composition of cell membranes throughout the body, which in turn affects how cells communicate and function. Fats from whole plant sources, such as nuts, seeds, olives, and avocados, are consistently associated with better health outcomes. The same is true for fats from fish, particularly those that live in cold waters and accumulate oils rich in omega-3 fatty acids. These fats support cell membrane function and provide raw materials for the production of signaling molecules that regulate inflammation. Fats from industrial seed oils, often used in processed foods, have a different fatty acid profile that may shift the body's balance toward a more inflammatory state when consumed in large amounts. Similarly, excessive intake of saturated fats from certain sources may have negative effects, though this relationship is more complex than once believed and depends heavily on what these fats replace in the diet. Protein considerations. Maintaining muscle mass requires adequate protein intake, and this becomes more important with age because the body becomes somewhat less efficient at using dietary protein. The question is not simply how much protein, but also what sources. Plant protein sources, such as beans, lentils, chickpeas, nuts, and seeds, provide protein along with fiber and phytochemicals. Animal protein sources, such as fish, poultry, eggs, and dairy, provide protein in a form that is easily used by the body. Many experts suggest that a mix of sources is reasonable, with emphasis on those that come with fewer potential downsides. The distribution of protein throughout the day may matter as well. Spreading protein intake across meals, rather than concentrating it in one meal, may support better muscle maintenance. Eating patterns and timing, beyond what people eat, when they eat may also influence aging. Research in animals has shown that restricting the timing of food intake, without necessarily restricting total calories, affects various pathways related to longevity. The proposed mechanism involves giving the digestive system regular periods of rest, during which cellular repair processes can be upregulated. For humans, this might translate to avoiding food for several hours before sleep, or to maintaining a consistent daily eating window. The evidence is not yet conclusive, but many people find that such patterns improve sleep quality and energy levels regardless of any long-term effects. Hydration as nutrition. Water deserves mention in any discussion of nutrition because it is essential for every cellular process. The body's ability to regulate temperature, transport nutrients, remove waste, and maintain joint function all depend on adequate hydration. The sensation of thirst becomes less reliable with age, meaning that older adults may need to pay more conscious attention to fluid intake. Water is the ideal source, though other beverages and water-rich foods also contribute. The goal is simply to maintain consistent hydration throughout the day, avoiding both dehydration and the excessive intake that can stress the kidneys. Part 5. The hidden influence of the nervous system. The nervous system is the body's master regulator, controlling everything from heart rate to digestion to the perception of pain. Its state has profound effects on health and aging, effects that are often overlooked in discussions focused solely on diet and exercise. The stress response and its costs. The human stress response evolved to deal with acute physical threats. When a predator appeared, the body mobilized resources for fighting or fleeing. Heart rate and blood pressure increased. Energy was diverted from long-term projects like digestion and repair to immediate needs. Stress hormones flooded the system. This response is brilliant for short-term survival, but the modern world tends to trigger it chronically, for threats that are not physical and do not resolve quickly. Financial worries, relationship difficulties, work pressures, and constant exposure to upsetting news can all keep the stress response activated. The result is that the body spends extended periods in a state meant for short emergencies. The costs of this chronic activation are significant. Elevated stress hormones over long periods contribute to inflammation, impair immune function, and may accelerate cellular aging. The diversion of resources away from maintenance and repair means that damage accumulates faster than it can be addressed. Sleep, essential for repair processes, is often disrupted. Regulating the nervous system. The nervous system has two main branches. The sympathetic branch mobilizes the body for action, increasing alertness and preparing for effort. The parasympathetic branch supports rest, digestion, and repair. These branches are meant to balance each other, with sympathetic activation during activity and parasympathetic dominance during rest. Many people spend too much time in sympathetic activation, even when not actively engaged in demanding activities. The goal of nervous system regulation is to strengthen the ability to shift into parasympathetic mode, to give the body adequate time in its repair-oriented state. Breathing patterns offer a direct way to influence this balance. Slow, deep, rhythmic breathing activates the parasympathetic system. Even a few minutes of such breathing can lower heart rate and reduce stress hormone levels. This is not mysticism, it is basic physiology, accessible to anyone. The relaxation response. The late Harvard physician Herbert Benson studied what he called the relaxation response, a physiological state opposite to the stress response. He found that practices as simple as repeating a word or phrase, focusing on the breath, or engaging in gentle, repetitive movement could reliably produce this state. The relaxation response is characterized by decreased heart rate, lower blood pressure, slower breathing, and reduced muscle tension. Regular elicitation of this state appears to have cumulative benefits, essentially training the nervous system to return to balance more easily. This can be achieved through many avenues: meditation, prayer, yoga, tai chi, walking in nature, listening to music, or engaging in creative activities can all produce this state. The specific practice matters less than the regular experience of deep relaxation. Sleep as nervous system restoration. Sleep is when the nervous system performs essential maintenance. The brain clears metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking hours. Memories are consolidated. Emotional experiences are processed. Stress hormone levels drop, allowing repair processes to proceed. The amount and quality of sleep needed varies among individuals, but the pattern of regularly obtaining adequate, restorative sleep is consistently associated with better health outcomes. Sleep disturbances become more common with age, but many can be addressed through attention to sleep habits. Consistent bed and wake times support the body's internal clock. Exposure to natural light during the day, particularly in the morning, helps regulate sleep-wake cycles, reducing exposure to bright screens in the evening, as the blue light they emit can suppress melatonin production, supports natural sleep onset. A cool, dark, quiet sleeping environment signals to the nervous system that it is time for rest. Part 6. Social connection and its biological effects. The tendency to view health as an individual matter, as something that happens inside a single body, obscures an important truth. Humans are deeply social creatures, and our biology is profoundly influenced by our connections with others. What the research shows. Decades of population studies have consistently found that people with stronger social connections tend to live longer and experience better health than those who are more isolated. This relationship holds even after accounting for other factors like income, health behaviors, and pre-existing conditions. The effect size is comparable to well-established risk factors like smoking and physical inactivity. The mechanisms appear to be multiple. Social connection buffers against stress, providing emotional support and practical help that reduces the burden of life's challenges. People with strong social ties tend to have lower levels of inflammatory markers and better immune function. Social engagement provides cognitive stimulation that may help maintain brain health. And social networks often encourage health-promoting behaviors, whether through shared activities or gentle accountability. The challenge of maintaining connection. Maintaining social connections becomes more difficult with age for many people. Retirement can reduce daily contact with colleagues. Children move away. Friends and family members may become ill or pass away. Mobility limitations can make it harder to get out and see people. These challenges are real, but they do not mean that social connection is impossible. The key is intentionality. Recognizing that social connection matters for health elevates it from a nice-to-have to an essential component of a well-lived life. This might mean scheduling regular time with friends, joining groups organized around interests, volunteering, or finding ways to connect with neighbors. It might mean making the effort to reach out to family members, even when it feels easier to wait for them to call. Quality versus quantity. The quality of social connections matters as much as, or more than, the quantity. A few close, supportive relationships provide more benefit than many superficial ones. Relationships characterized by trust, mutual support, and the freedom to be oneself appear to be particularly protective. Conversely, relationships that are sources of conflict, criticism, or emotional drain may do more harm than good. Part of healthy aging involves evaluating one's social connections and investing energy in those that are genuinely supportive, while perhaps distancing from those that are consistently negative. Solitude and connection. There is a distinction between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the distressing feeling of being disconnected from others, of wanting connection but not having it. Solitude is the peaceful state of being alone by choice, of enjoying one's own company. Solitude can be restorative, providing time for reflection and self-connection. Loneliness is damaging. The goal is not to be constantly surrounded by people, but to have the quality and quantity of connection that feels right for the individual. To know that support of others are available when needed, and to feel part of something larger than oneself. Part 7. Purpose and engagement. Beyond social connection, there is the question of purpose, the sense that one's life has meaning and direction. This is not a luxury or an abstraction. It appears to have measurable effects on health and longevity. The evidence for purpose. Several large-scale studies have followed people over many years and found that those who report a stronger sense of purpose in life tend to live longer and experience better physical and cognitive function. This relationship holds even after accounting for other factors like health status, depression, and socioeconomic status. The mechanisms are not fully understood, but several possibilities exist. Purpose may motivate health-promoting behaviors. People who feel their lives have meaning may be more inclined to take care of themselves. Purpose may buffer against stress, providing perspective that reduces the impact of daily difficulties. Purpose may keep people engaged and active, providing natural opportunities for movement, social connection, and cognitive stimulation. Sources of purpose. Purpose can come from many sources. For some, it comes from work, from the sense of contributing something valuable through their occupation. For others, it comes from family, from the role of parent or grandparent. For still others, it comes from creative expression, from volunteer work, from spiritual or religious practice, from learning, from mentoring, from activism, from simply being present for others. Purpose does not have to be grand or world-changing to be effective. It simply has to feel meaningful to the individual. The sense that one's daily activities matter, that one is needed or valued, that one's presence makes a difference to someone or something, appears to be protective. Maintaining purpose across the years. Purpose can shift with life circumstances. The purpose that sustains someone during their working years may need to evolve after retirement. The purpose that came from raising children may need to transform after they leave home. These transitions can be challenging, but they are also opportunities to discover new sources of meaning. Staying engaged with life, remaining curious, continuing to learn and grow, and finding ways to contribute to others all support a sense of purpose. This does not require constant activity or achievement. It simply requires remaining open to what matters and structuring daily life to include activities that feel meaningful. Part 8. Environmental factors and exposures. The body exists in constant interaction with its environment, and the quality of that environment influences how well the body functions over time. Attention to environmental factors is an often overlooked aspect of healthy aging. Air quality. The air we breathe has direct access to the bloodstream through the lungs. Particulate matter from vehicle exhaust, industrial emissions, and even indoor sources can trigger inflammatory responses throughout the body. Long-term exposure to poor air quality is associated with cardiovascular and respiratory conditions, and may also affect brain health. While individuals have limited control over outdoor air quality, there are steps that can be taken. High-quality air filters in homes can reduce indoor particulate levels. Avoiding outdoor exercise during times of poor air quality reduces exposure. Ensuring good ventilation when cooking or using products that release fumes also helps. Light exposure. Light is not just for vision. It is a powerful regulator of the body's internal clocks. Exposure to natural light during the day, particularly in the morning, helps synchronize these clocks and supports healthy sleep-wake cycles. Insufficient daytime light exposure can contribute to sleep disturbances and mood changes. Conversely, exposure to bright artificial light in the evening, particularly the blue light emitted by screens, can disrupt sleep by suppressing melatonin production. Simple adjustments, such as dimming lights in the evening and using blue light filtering settings on devices, can support natural sleep patterns. Noise and its effects. Chronic noise exposure, even at levels that do not cause hearing damage, can activate stress responses. The body interprets noise as a potential threat, and persistent noise keeps the nervous system in a state of heightened alert. This contributes to the same chronic stress problems discussed earlier. Creating periods of quiet, seeking out natural sound environments, and reducing unnecessary noise in the home can all help lower this background stress load. Chemical exposures. Modern life involves exposure to thousands of synthetic chemicals, many of which have not been thoroughly studied for long-term health effects. Some of these chemicals, such as those in certain pesticides, plastics, and personal care products, are known to disrupt hormonal systems. While it is impossible to avoid all chemical exposures, reducing them where feasible makes sense. Choosing foods grown with fewer pesticides when possible, using glass or stainless steel containers instead of plastic for food storage, and selecting personal care products with simpler ingredient lists are all reasonable steps. Part 9. Cognitive health and mental engagement. The brain, like the rest of the body, changes with age. Processing speed may slow slightly. Occasional word-finding difficulties may appear. These normal changes are distinct from the pathological changes that characterize dementia. Understanding this difference and knowing what supports cognitive health is important for healthy aging. What supports brain health? Many of the factors that support physical health also support brain health. Regular physical activity improves blood flow to the brain and stimulates the release of factors that support the growth of new neurons and connections between them. A diet rich in plant foods provides compounds that protect brain cells from damage. Good sleep allows the brain to clear waste products and consolidate memories. Social engagement provides cognitive stimulation and emotional support. stress management reduces the damaging effects of stress hormones on brain tissue. Mental engagement. The idea of using it or losing it has some truth, though it is often oversimplified. Engaging in mentally challenging activities does appear to support cognitive function, but the type of engagement matters. Activities that are novel and complex, that require learning new skills or solving new problems, seem to provide more benefit than simply repeating familiar puzzles. Learning a new language, taking up a musical instrument, engaging in complex hobbies, or taking courses on unfamiliar topics all provide the kind of mental challenge that supports cognitive reserve. This reserve is the brain's ability to compensate for age-related changes by using alternative pathways and strategies. The role of attitude. Beliefs about aging may influence how well people age. Research has found that individuals with more positive views of aging, those who see older age as a time of continued growth and capability, tend to live longer and experience better cognitive function than those with more negative views. This relationship holds even after accounting for other health factors. The mechanism may involve both behavior and biology. People with positive views of aging may be more likely to engage in health-promoting activities and to persist in the face of challenges. They may also experience less stress-related damage because they do not view normal age-related changes as catastrophes. Part 10. Integration and daily practice. The preceding sections have covered many aspects of healthy aging, which can feel overwhelming if approached as a list of things to do. The key is integration. Understanding that these factors work together and that small, consistent practices in multiple areas accumulate into significant effects over time. The principle of consistency. Nearly everything discussed in this exploration works through consistency rather than intensity. A single day of healthy eating does nothing. A daily pattern of healthy eating, maintained over years, shapes the body's composition and function. A single walk provides temporary benefits. A daily walking habit, sustained over decades, changes cardiovascular health and joint function. This is encouraging because it means that perfection is not required. Missed days, imperfect choices, and periods of difficulty do not negate the benefits of an overall pattern. The goal is simply to return to beneficial practices, again and again, without judgment. The principle of individualization. The strategies that work for one person may not work for another. Different bodies respond differently to foods. Different personalities find different forms of movement sustainable. Different life circumstances allow for different levels of social engagement. The task is not to follow a prescribed program, but to observe what works for oneself, to experiment gently, and to build a personal approach that fits one's own preferences and constraints. This requires self-knowledge and honesty. It means recognizing when a recommended practice is causing more stress than benefit, and being willing to adapt. It means understanding that what works at one stage of life may need adjustment at another. The principle of enjoyment. Practices that are maintained are those that provide some immediate reward. Movement that is enjoyable is easier to sustain than movement that feels like punishment. Foods that are pleasurable are easier to include regularly than foods that feel like medicine. Social connections that are nurturing are easier to maintain than those that feel obligatory. This does not mean that every healthy practice must be constantly pleasurable. Some beneficial activities require effort that is not immediately rewarding. But the overall pattern should include enough enjoyment to be self-sustaining. Enough pleasure in the present to support choices that also benefit the future. The principle of attention. Much of what has been discussed involves paying attention. Attention to how different foods make the body feel. Attention to how different types of movement affect energy and mood. Attention to the quality of sleep and what influences it. Attention to the nervous system state and what calms it. Attention to social connections and which ones nourish. attention to the environment and how it affects well-being. This attention is not worry or hypervigilance. It is simple observation, noticing without judgment, gathering information that can inform choices. The body communicates constantly about its needs and its state. Learning to hear that communication is a skill that develops with practice. Part 11. Looking forward with clarity. The exploration of healthy aging is, in some ways, an exploration of how to live well at any age. The principles that support physical health in later years are largely the same principles that support well-being throughout life. Movement matters. Food matters. Rest matters. Connection matters. Purpose matters. Environment matters. These are not secrets or breakthroughs. They are the accumulated wisdom of human experience, confirmed by modern research. What makes them challenging is not their complexity, but their simplicity. They require no special products, no expensive programs, no expert guidance beyond what is freely available. They require only the willingness to pay attention and to make choices, day after day, that support the life one wishes to live. There is no guarantee that following these principles will prevent all difficulties. Bodies are complex, and genetics and chance play roles that no amount of healthy behavior can entirely overcome. But following these principles does shift the odds. It increases the probability that the later years will be years of continued engagement, continued capability, continued pleasure in being alive. And perhaps more importantly, following these principles changes the experience of the present. The same choices that support long-term health also tend to improve how one feels today. Movement creates energy. Good food creates satisfaction. Rest creates restoration. Connection creates warmth. Purpose creates meaning. These are not sacrifices made for a distant future. They are investments that pay dividends immediately, while also building a foundation for the years ahead. The path of healthy aging is not about fighting against time or trying to stop natural processes. It is about working with the body, supporting its innate capacities for repair and maintenance, creating conditions that allow it to function well for as long as possible. It is about accepting that change is inevitable while recognizing that the trajectory of that change is influenced by daily choices. The body that has carried you through decades of experience deserves care and attention, not because it is perfect or because it will last forever, but because it is the only vehicle you have for experiencing this life, treating it with respect, listening to its signals, providing what it needs to function well, and accepting its limitations with grace. These are the practices that support not just longer life, but better life, lived fully across all the years. The body that has carried you through decades of experience deserves attention not because it is perfect or because it will last forever, but because it is the only vehicle you have for experiencing this life, treating it with respect, listening to its signals, providing what it needs to function well, and accepting its limitations with grace. These are the practices that support not just longer life, but better life, lived fully across all the years. If this exploration has prompted thoughts about your own approach to the years ahead, we would welcome hearing about them in the comments. And if you would like to continue exploring the patterns that support healthy aging, the Longevity Library offers many such conversations. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.